These are the SLC Fanboys.
Welcome to the Sundance Film Festival. I am Heather Kelly. I am filling in as guest host for SLC Fanboys. And today, here at the Music Lounge, I have joining me Claire McCarthy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you, first of all, congratulations. Love seeing more women behind the camera. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for being appreciative of that. There's not that many of us, but
I know.
You know, it's good to...
So first of all, how do we get more women behind the camera? How are we going to do that?
Well, I think there are more women behind the camera than people maybe want to acknowledge. I think there's a big skill base of women that are very experienced, have studied film, are really, very good at their craft, but are not given opportunities. And I think there's also the debate about, enriching women and their experience of being able to move into film, but I think there's also women that are in film that aren't being acknowledged and given the breaks. So I think it's a two-pronged thing. And I think there's also things that need to be discussed about sustainability of the work environment and a bunch of things. But it's a big debate, and the time is now, and let's hope that it's more than just talk.
Oh, yeah, I hope so too, because, 40, 50 years ago, we had the civil rights movement, and we're still having issues in that. So I don't want this to be 50 years from now. We're still talking about where are the women in the film industry. So, so you have a film, you brought a film to Sundance called Ophelia. Correct.
It's a mythic reworking of Shakespeare's Hamlet from the point of view of Ophelia. It's the same story, it's reimagined, it has a kind of a mythic underbelly, I guess, and it's retelling it still 14th century in castles, but it has a kind of much more empowered viewpoint from all the characters, in particular Ophelia.
Did you write it as well?
I didn't. Wonderful writer, Semi Chellis, wrote the screenplay. She's won a couple of Emmys for her work on Mad Men, and we've been very lucky to have her beautiful writing on this script, and also obviously the underlying text, Shakespeare's Hamlet, which who would knew is such a good writer.
Right, and I think some people would be very interested, especially the followers of SLC Fanboys. Who do you have playing Ophelia?
We have Daisy Ridley playing Ophelia.
And she is better known
as Rey from Star Wars. I think it's really an interesting thing because Daisy is obviously not only very beautiful and very talented, but she has a kind of intrinsic strength about her, which I think brought so much to that Star Wars franchise, which I think in terms of bringing her over to Ophelia, which is traditionally quite a, delicate, sort of mermaidy, flaky, sort of emotional woman, which is great and beautiful and romantic, and you see her on those classic paintings where she's sort of succumbing to her death and it's really sad and tragic. She's sort of becoming almost like a mythic, tragic icon. In our version, she is all of that on the outside, but what Daisy brings is this kind of sort of gutsy inner fortitude and strength, and I think that's what makes it really interesting for our film, is that she's more than just the outside.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. So did you require the actors to study the Shakespeare before you actually got them behind the camera on this version?
Well, we did do a lot of looking at the text, and I really knew the play myself very well, and it is such a beloved text. I think it's important if you're going to, riff on Shakespeare, you should have done your homework. But that said, we did update the language, and we are telling the story from a different point of view. So we didn't want the film to just be apologetically art house. We wanted it to be something that people who weren't a Shakespeare expert could still connect to the intensity of the story and the contemporary nature of the story. I think in a world where we see Game of Thrones, and we've kind of been accustomed to seeing stories that are outside of the contemporary framework but still really connect to us, and we kind of go, whoa, I can see myself in that story, or I can understand that. I think that's what we're trying to do with this film. It's not for Shakespeare experts. We're telling a story that can hopefully connect to any audience beyond time.
Well, updating the language, I think, helps make it less intimidating.
Yes.
For people. I've done quite a bit of Shakespeare myself, and I love it. I love the language, but I talk to so many people, I'm like, oh, come to my play, do that, and they're like, what is it? And I tell them, and they're like, oh, I can't do Shakespeare. I don't understand Shakespeare.
Yes, I think that's definitely one of those stumbling blocks with Shakespeare, that people can't get past the language, and so we did spend a lot of time figuring out how to take that Jacobean text and those famous soliloquies and monologues, and still give a bit of a nod to them. For people that do know the play, it is faithful, but it also is sort of, the syntax is kind of a little bit, it has more bounce in it, it has a contemporary feel, but without it feeling like it's modern, if you know what I mean. It's sort of, and the difficulty for us is working out how to do that so it doesn't feel like it's watering it down or feel like it's vanilla. So it has to, you know, it's been a real interesting exercise in working out where that middle ground is. It still has the boldness of the original material. And
where did you film it?
We filmed in Prague, mostly,
Nice.
in amazing Gothic castles, and it was quite amazing, some of the places we got to film in.
So is it less expensive to take a film overseas? And because I hear of a lot of films being filmed in what we, Eastern Europe countries, so it's less expensive there than to do it in the US?
Yes, I think there's, when you probably balance it out with what you can get with locations and then tax breaks and rebates, I think it probably works out cheaper with a film like ours, where it's a period setting and you're going to have so much access to beautiful high Gothic architecture and things that you just can't build. It was a good move for the production. I think it gives it a real texture and a real character, and a world that hopefully is believable.
Nice. Okay, so has this premiered already at Sundance?
Our premiere's on Monday night at the Eccles, so it's a bit terrifying.
And that's Eccles is in downtown Salt Lake City.
That's correct.
Right. Okay, that's more my neighborhood. All right. So Monday night, Eccles at,
I think it's 6:30 p.m.
6:30 p.m. We're all going to try to get down there to that. What other projects do you have coming up?
I have a project. It's a kind of skewed Western, I guess. It's a psychological thriller, but it's set in the Dakota Badlands at the turn of last century. It stars Viola Davis. It's a passion project we've been working on together for some time. She's an incredible actress and wonderful person, and that's the next thing we're shooting up in Vancouver.
Oh, awesome. I love Viola Davis.
I know.
Oh,
she's just incredible.
You need me on the set.
I'll take you up on that. We'll talk later.
All right, awesome. All right, anything else coming up that you want to talk about? Or?
Yes, I have another project as well. It's set in Madagascar. It's about a primatologist and her relationship with her daughter. It's kind of about science, but it's really also about mothers and daughters and about relationships between them and how they kind of fray. And it's set largely in Madagascar, so it also does deal with all the beautiful, unique flora and fauna in that country too, which is often, really endangered.
Did you get to film in Madagascar?
Well, I haven't filmed it yet. This is a project that we're quite close to financing. Yeah, so we're hoping to shoot that either the end of this year or early next. Yeah.
So speaking of, so you're trying to get financing for it. What do you already know, like what budget you want or need, or do you just wait till all the money comes in and then you go, okay, this is what we have to work with? How does that work as a director with the budget?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a bit of box A and box B. I mean, oftentimes the concept will dictate that you'll need a certain amount of resources and a certain amount of money in order to execute it, but then sometimes the marketplace won't give you that money, so you've got to work out a new way to execute the vision with limited resources or less budget than you may have wanted. So, and a lot of it comes down to who you can, who will come on board as your cast, and there's so many variables, and it's a real juggling act really all the way.
And if you're able to go to Madagascar, because I know that there are so many species that are dying out, are you allowed to film in Madagascar? I mean, or is that a protected area?
It is, and there's some national parks and protected sanctioned areas. We did a location scout there recently, and it's amazing what is there and what we can achieve, and also be very mindful about the way we make the film. And I think that's really part of this project, is not just about coming in as the Westerners with all our preconceptions and just acting like a big fat film shoot. It's really about also honouring that this is a very delicate environment, and working out how to make the film. The process of making the film is as important as the end product, and it has to honour the people that are involved, and also the way that we make the work, I think, will affect the end product. So
wonderful. Okay, so that's 2 other films.
Yes.
Anything else?
I have a few things percolating. I've got a film about Marie Curie, which is starring Diane Kruger.
Yeah. I'm there.
Okay.
I'm there. I love science.
I know, she's amazing. A really interesting woman, actually. And there's a couple of other things in the pipeline, but all of the stories I guess I'm focusing on are films that show new visions about women's lives, and also what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, and they're not particularly feminist, but certainly showing something fresh about what it means to be a human in the world.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say that. It was, you were telling me, like, all these characters or the movies that are centering around, they're all female characters. Thank you again. So do you think that's something, if we get more female directors and or producers, that we will start seeing a different view of women's lives?
I think so, and I think even if they're not female protagonists, which I think it'd be great if there are, and sometimes a story needs to be told from a male perspective, but I think if a female is telling the story, she or he, whoever's directing it, will bring their insight and their worldview to that material. So I think the more that there's a balance of women directors in the industry, it will certainly add a dimension to the way stories are being told.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much,
problem.
Claire McCarthy. Your film Ophelia, that's going to open up Monday at the Eccles Theater in Salt Lake City. And thank you so much for bringing that. And I love Ophelia. I was Ophelia.
Look at this red hair.
Yeah. All right. Thank you again, and thanks
My
for
pleasure.
joining the SLC Fanboys. I'm Heather Kelly, their guest host.